Jonathan,
Yeah.
it's a sad day today.
Oh no.
You know why?
Why?
No more tech birthdays, no more tech history.
That's it.
We've gone through it all. Now it's just the meat and potatoes of the podcast. This is when you've gone through your soup, you've eaten all the vegetables, and all you got is this chicken leg, a little bit of juice in there to go. So it might be good. Who knows,
Just getting right to it.
Let's get right to it. Exactly. So let's talk about where we left off. We left off where we changed our SQL Server store procedure so that we can handle pagination. We can go and grab a few records at a time, right? Because if we have a couple hundred records, not that big of a deal, right? But if you got a couple 100,000 records, then it becomes a big deal. You can't just go and grab a couple 100,000 records and send it up to the browser. What's the user going to do with 200,000 records, On your screen, you have so much real estate that you can deal with, and you need to be able to show that information in that screen. And you got to give the user the ability to either paginate, some filtering, some sorting, something, right? In order to be able to consume the information from a couple 100,000 records. So what we do is we use pagination, and we tell SQL Server, go and grab us the first 5 records, and that's what we're going to display. Or 10 records or 15 records or however many records we've determined fit on a page and is consumable by the user.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we paginate. We can go first, last, next, previous, all that stuff, right? So that they can consume small bits of information at a time, because the human brain isn't that crafty that it can do something with 200,000 records. It's just impossible. So we change our store procedure so that we can grab a few records at a time. And then we had to change our API to receive what page number they're in and how many records they want. So if they want to grab 10 records of page number 2, we go and we run the store procedure, and it grabs us, the next X amount of records for that particular page that we want to see. And that's what we display to the user. So when we last left, we had the API working, and we also broke the UI because we had to change the object structure and stuff, and we fixed it. But now we need to add that pagination navigation. It almost rhymes, huh? Pagination navigation. We have to add that navigation so that the user can paginate through their couple 100,000 records. In our case, we have 100. But still, 100 is quite a bit for the brain to consume, especially when you're dealing with contacts. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some buttons that will allow us to go first, last, next, previous. We'll give them the option to select the dropdown and select how many records they want to display, whether it be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. I think 25 is kind of the max that we should probably give them. I don't know that a user can do any more than 25, can do anything with more than 25 records. And then we'll also display what page they're currently on out of how many pages. And we'll use some math to do that calculation. Very simple math. It's, things that, they're pretty basic. If you made it through the 4th grade, you'll be able to do this without a problem, It's pretty easy stuff.
I don't need to pull out my math degree for this, do I?
You do not have to pull out your math degree for this one, Jonathan.
All right.
We're gonna be okay without it. So let's start by sharing your screen and launch the application, and we'll see where we're at. So let's go over to Visual Studio and launch it. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
All right. And let's open up the debugger tools. Let's go over to Visual Studio Code, and let's get rid of the things that it's complaining about. So go back to the browser just for a moment.
Mhm.
So it says that on line 1411, there's a handle click. Let's get rid of it. 1411. Oh, interesting. Oh, you know what? If you go back to the browser, right click on your refresh and clear cache.
Okay.
There we go. Now we got it. Oh, well, there's a couple of things. Use effect is missing dependencies, contact result page number, and contact result page size. Interesting. We're going to deal with this problem later on. We want to definitely get rid of that warning. Whenever we launch our application, we want to watch these warnings because sometimes these warnings in the future become an actual error. And so we'll want to keep a close eye on it, but there's a way to handle this, and we'll talk about it, a couple of different ways to handle it. Very cool. So let's go over to Visual Studio Code and let's add some buttons at the bottom of the table. So let's go ahead and collapse line. Let's see. Let's collapse line 31. You see how on line 29 there we start a new row. Mm-hmm. So if we follow that closing div is on line 56. So after line 56, we'll go ahead and start a new row, new column. Now, one of the things, Jonathan, that I noticed is that we're using the class name column, but I think we actually, I don't know that there's an actual column class in Bootstrap. I think it's COL-12 or COL-6. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And we'll want to change it on line 30 and on line 25 as well. And let's go ahead and save this and see what we got and make sure we didn't break the UI. All right. It's still looking good.
Still going.
Still going. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code and let's add some buttons. And these buttons, we'll just go ahead and label them with first, and then a second button with previous, and then a third button with next, and a fourth button with last.
All right.
Excellent. Let's go ahead and save this and see how that looks up on the screen.
Oh.
Let's go back to your code. If you go all the way to the top, you see that line number 4, that we want to get rid of that. All right, look at that. So we have our first, our previous, our next, and our last. Now, in between previous and next, what I'd like to do is I'd like to add a span tag. And in that span, I want to put page 1 of so many, and we'll do some calculation. So yeah, so in here, we'll just do page 1 of n or something. Just put n for now. Let's go ahead and save that and see what that looks like. All right. We're getting some nice aesthetics here. I think one of the things I'd like to do, Jonathan, is add a little bit of padding between previous and page and n and next so that we get a little bit of space in there. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and save this and see what it looks like.
There we go.
A lot better. Starting to look a lot better.
Nice.
So, do we have the page number and the page count? I think we do, don't we? Can we go look at the state, the object state, and see what information we have in there? So we have the page number and we have the page size. So we can actually put contact result dot contact page no down at the bottom. So contact result dot contact page no. So let's go down to that span. And you see where it says page 1?
Mm-hmm.
Replace that number 1 with curly braces. And go ahead and put page.result. Is it page.result? Contact result, sorry.
Result.
Let's go ahead and save that and see what that looks like. All right. So we got the page number in there still. That's a good sign. Mm-hmm. Nothing's broken. Let's go back into the code, and we need to replace that N with a math calculation. All right. So let's go ahead and replace that N with the open close curly braces. We want to grab the total number of records. So this is going to be contact result rec count divided by contact result dot page size. So this is the math that we're going to use, right? So we get the total number of records, we divide it by the number of records on the screen, and that'll give us a page count. Let's go ahead and save this, and let's see what that looks like. Hey, look at that. There's one problem. Right now, we have 100 records in a database. So if we divide it by 5, we end up with 20. But what if we have 101 records? We end up with a decimal value. Mm-hmm. And that then becomes a problem. What we need to do is we need to accommodate page 21 in case we have something that isn't divisible by the number of records that are displayed on the screen. JavaScript has a function that we can use. So let's go back to the code. What we want to do, Jonathan, is that math calculation, contact results.rec count divided by contact results.page count. We want to wrap that inside of a function. So let's highlight it and cut it out just for a moment. And it's going to be the function that we're going to use is part of the math namespace, and it's called ceiling. Okay, so we're going to do capital M math dot lowercase ceil, C-E-I, there it is, C-E-I-L. And then open close parentheses and paste that calculation in there. So let's save this and let's make sure that it still works. Very cool. Let's go and add, let's go ahead and open up SQL Server and let's add a couple of more records. We can manually add them, I think. And let's right click on person and edit top 1000 rows or top 200. And let's go all the way down to the bottom. And let's just go ahead and add a first name, add mine. Let's add another one. I don't know, Gerard Beach. All right. And then let's go add, so that's going to be record 101, 102. So let's go to email and add the email there. And then we'll need to also add it for the phone number. So let's go over to the phone table and do the same thing. Cool. Let's go back to your browser and do a clear cache and refresh. Look at that. So now it accommodates for that particular. So what happened? Let's talk about what math.ceiling does. All right. In your console, you see where that little chevron is right next to it. Let's go ahead and start a variable in there. Say var x equal to 1.2. Enter. And so it's a decimal, right? Mm-hmm. But we want, in some cases, we're going to want the number 1. In other cases, we're going to want the number 2. Rounding doesn't work because rounding has rules. Anything 5 and above, it rounds up. Anything 4 and below, it rounds down. right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's these two functions. One's called floor and the other one's called ceiling. And that's what either forces it down or forces it up. We wanted to force it up
Mm-hmm.
because clearly there's another page there to be displayed. There's not a total of 5 records. There's only 2 records in there, but there's still an additional page after the math is done. So let's go ahead and type in math.floor. And then inside of parentheses, put the X. Press enter. And then let's do math.ceiling and put the X in there. So you can see where the floor gives you 1 and the ceiling gives you 2. It basically rounds it down or rounds it up, forces it up or down. So in your math degree, did they have this?
I feel like I remember something like this. Yeah.
Been so long.
It was so long ago.
It is, yeah. So this is basically what we're using in order to accommodate. So we're using ceiling in order to be able to accommodate for that extra page. Kind of cool?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go back into code. So let's go ahead and do the onClick event.
Ooh, now it works.
Yeah, my bad. I get so confused sometimes. Let's go ahead and do a clear cache and refresh.
Okay.
A lot of times React gets a little confused.
There we go.
All right. Let's go and set the last page. What do we put here?
21. Oh, is it like the N?
We got to put that math ceiling
Okay.
calculation. So, yep. Save it and let's check it out. Click on that last.
What? Cool.
So it's actually doing something. Can you do a clear cache and refresh? And let's click on the last. So we are, can you expand in the console? Can you expand that data? Can you expand data? And can you expand the contact item list? Can we look at Postman and see what that API call is supposed to be? I think our API call is incorrect. Page no and page size. And that's working. Can we go ahead and send that? Let's change that page number to 2. Okay, so we're not getting the records correctly. So let's go look at the C# code. Page no, page size. Let's go to Visual Studio. Yep. Let's go to the contact controller. Let's put a breakpoint on line 21 and let's see what's happening here. And then let's go into the browser or into Postman actually. And go ahead and send. Okay, so what is page size? Can you hover over page size and page number? Okay, let's go ahead and step into this function.
Right.
Into. And what is page size and page no? Okay, let's go ahead and step into. So in here, oh, I know what's wrong, Jonathan. You know what we forgot to do?
What?
We forgot to send in the parameters.
Oh.
And that's why they're defaulting. So if we go look at, let's go look at SQL Server. And let's expand programmability and store procedures. And let's go look at the contact list, right click and modify. It's expecting page count and page num, but we've defaulted them to 5 and 1. That's why we're not getting any errors. So, and we did this because we weren't quite ready to fully fix our UI. And so we're like, let's get some default values, and then that way we can get some data, and we'll fix our UI and we'll add the functionality after. So we need to add page count and page num as parameters. Let's go back to C#. And let's go ahead and stop this. All right. So after line 23, we need to add some parameters. You remember how we add parameters, Jonathan? Let's go open up one of our other applications.
Okay.
What is one of the first CRUD applications that we did? So if you right click on Visual Studio and see, what do we got here? We got, isn't significant one of those?
Oh, yeah.
Significant. Let's go do that. And let's go look at our data project where we have history or birth dates, either one. And I believe, here we go. So right where it says create, you see how we have on line 59, we have the command.parameters add with value.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let's go back. We need to do this. Cool. So now that we've got our parameters being sent in, we can go ahead and save this and rerun the application. And let's see if the first and last button work now. All right, let's see if that last page works. Ooh. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Let's go back to the first page.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. But there's a slight little problem. Go ahead and click on last page. And click on last page again. That's not a very good user experience. The user's going to click on that page and just like, well, what's the point of having a button enabled if it's not going to do nothing?
Yeah. Still click on it.
Yeah. So we need to disable buttons when we reach the first page and when we reach the last page. And this is strictly for a good user experience, just a visual effect that tells the user, hey, this button is no longer available because whatever state the data is in no longer matches the criteria for you to do anything with it. Mm-hmm. So let's go and disable these buttons. Let's go back into Visual Studio Code. And there's a property called disabled. So on line 58, the onClick, go ahead and put it on a separate line. At the end of line 59, let's go ahead and give it a new. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add the disabled property. So lowercase disabled equals open close curly braces, since it's going to be a function. And what we want to tell it is that this is going to be disabled when the page number is less than or equal to 1. So it'll be contact result dot page no less than or equal to 1. And then we're also going to want to disable the previous button. So we want to do the same thing. We want to go ahead and disable that previous button with that same command. Excellent. Let's go make sure that this is disabled correctly. Listen, save this, and you're going to have to clear cache and, go ahead and clear cache and reload. All right. So first and previous are disabled. You can't go any further than 1 because we don't have negative records, right? So let's go do the same thing with next and last.
So we're going to have to put this equation again.
Yep. Excellent. Let's go ahead and save this and let's go see what that page is looking like. Click on last. Oh, look at that.
Nice.
Click on previous. I mean on first. Very cool.
There we go.
Looking pretty good. Now we got to get our previous and next function to do something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go check it out. So just like we did an inline function for the onClick on the first and last, we can do the same thing with the previous and next.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and add that onClick event. And we're going to do the same thing as basically fat arrow set contact result. And then, yeah, the curly braces, ... contact result, comma. And this is going to be page no colon contact result dot page no +1. And then, oh, wait a second, this is previous -1. And so we would do the same thing with the next button, except that it's going to be +1. Let's save it and let's see if it works.
Yeah. Cool.
Let's go all the way to the end. Keep on going. Just keep on clicking next. See if it stops for us.
Yeah.
So go to first. Go to last.
Cool.
You are officially a QA engineer as well when you become a software engineer, Jonathan.
All right.
You have to test to make sure it works, right?
Yep.
That's kind of cool. Now, remember I said that out of 100 records, it's probably not going to fit on your screen, right? But for the user, they might want to see more than 5 records. And so I think in your case, we could go up to 25, but I think in this particular case, it might go beyond the screen. So we might want to, we'll go ahead and put 25. What the heck, you know? But I think what we want to do is, you know, what the heck? We'll just put 25. We'll put 5 through 25 as far as the select.
All right.
But where do we do that, right? Do we put it up on top? Do we put it next to the buttons? Where would we put them?
I would put it next to the buttons. I feel like
so right there next to the buttons.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's what I would do. You know how we have rows and columns in Bootstrap?
Mm-hmm.
What I would do is I would say the buttons for paging would be on columns, on 6 columns. And then the size of the page would be on another 6 columns, but we'll align it to the right.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So let's go into code. Let's go down to where our buttons are located. And we can go ahead and collapse our buttons. So collapse all the buttons. And then you see where it says column 12 on line 57. Let's change that to a column 6.
6.
That way we get 6 and 6. So if we follow the row all the way to 56, it closes at 76, right? So after 76, we'll need a new row and we'll new 6 columns. What we're going to do is we're actually going to use a select tag. And then inside these selects, we're going to put option tags. And the value of the option, so you can go ahead and just put 5. And then let's add option 5, option 10, option 15, option 20. Or you know what? Let's make it easier. Let's do 10, 20, 30.
All right.
Option 10, option 20, option 30. And actually get rid of, go ahead and put that as 30 and get rid of the 5. The other thing that we need is we actually need the value. So inside of the option, we need a property called value equals, and then inside of double quotes, it'll be 10. And the same thing for the 20 and the 30. Excellent. Let's save this and see what that looks like. Oh, because we have a new row. Actually, we just need a column. We don't need the row.
Okay.
Go ahead and save this and see what we got. I'm thinking we need a label for that dropdown. So if you go ahead and select that dropdown, what does a 10, 20, 30 really represent? You know what I mean? So I'm thinking we need to put a label. And that label, what would it be called? Maybe we call it row count. Do we just put a label in there and say row count?
Rows.
Probably, yeah. Let's go back into code and just put a label in there. I'm thinking after line 76, and go ahead and start a label tag and just close that label. And then in between those two, you can just put row count, like completely 2 words spelled out. This is for the user to be able to see this. Let's save that and see what we get.
Here we go.
Yeah, we need a space, huh? For whatever reason, HTML ignores spaces. So what we're going to do is we need to do the style with the padding on the right, maybe like 5 pixels. That's horrible, isn't it?
There we go.
Here we go. But now, when you change that, we need to change the number of rows that appear. So let's go back into code. And on the select, on line 78, there is an on change event. Line 78.
Oh, inside here.
Yeah, there's going to be an on change event. I would put that in a new line. So because it's an event, we're going to do E fat arrow. And we're going to set the contact result. It's going to be e.target.value. Yeah, so E is from the parameter E that we're receiving.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and save that. And let's go see if it works. And we know that one works. That's not working. Do we have, oh, you know why? If we go to the use effect, go up to use effect. So remember, go and scroll down just a tiny bit right there. On line 19, we're watching 2 results. We should be watching 3 results. We're only watching the page number and the page size. So the rec count, oh, you know what? We're changing the wrong one. We're changing rec count. We should be changing page size.
Oh.
Far right.
Rec count?
Row count should be page size. Save it and run it. All right. Let's see what we got. Oh, look at that. I'm thinking we should probably increment 5 records at a time, Jonathan. What do you think?
All right.
Yeah, let's change it to increment 5 records at a time. I think 10 is too much. All right, let's see what this looks like.
There we go.
Yeah, that's much better. I think if you go 15, it goes off this page. Yeah. So we'll play around with 5 and 10. So go ahead and switch it back to 5. Oops. And you'll see how it says page 4 of 21. Let's go to the first page. Oh, that works like a charm, doesn't it? And let's switch it. So you'll notice that page 1 of 21, when we switch the row count to 10. Oops. It says page 1 of 11. Mm-hmm. See how the math is working with us?
Yeah.
So it changes. It changes the values there. So Jonathan, I think one of the things that I'd like to do is I'd like to align that row count over to the right.
All right.
So we're using Bootstrap, right? So this should be pretty straightforward. What we're gonna need is we're gonna need a new div inside of the column 6 so that your label and your select is inside of a new div. So why don't we go ahead and cut this temporarily and create that new div. And this is going to have a class. And the class name that they're asking for is d-flex. So we're going to use the flex. And then we're also going to add a second class called justify-content-end. Beautiful. Let's save this and see what it looks like. Nice. And if we change the columns or the row count.
Sweet.
Yeah. Man,
nice.
15 is. I'm thinking we're looking pretty good. Change it back to 5 or 10. Let's get everything back on one screen.
Oops.
Whoa.
Sorry.
We lost you for a moment there.
The screen share button is right next to the.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and switch to that.
There we go.
5. Okay. There's a slight little problem. You'll notice that there's 21 pages when you have a row count of 5. Mm-hmm. But let's go ahead and switch it to 10. There's only 11 pages. So let's go ahead and switch it back to 5. And let's go over to page 13. And then switch the row count to 10.
Whoa.
That's a problem. This is, when you're working with a QA team, this is the type of problems that they find. They're like, hey, Vic, when you switch that row count and we go to another page that goes beyond what the new row count allows, it's like we end up with no records. We need to switch that. So my way of fixing it would be to switch it to the last page because that's where they're at. They're on the last page. So if we switch it back to page 5, or a row count of 5, it's on page 13, right? But if we were to switch it to 10, the maximum is 11. So what we would do is we would reduce the page from 13 to 11. So we need a little bit of logic in order to do that. So let's go back into code. And right now we are setting the select is using onChange and it's just setting the contact result. So we could write the rest of the code in line with this, but it's just going to get a little messy. So what I'm thinking is let's create a function that we can call instead of calling the fat arrow set contact result. We're actually going to call a function. So let's go up above the return and let's create a new function. And we'll call it The name of this function is going to be called handle select change. So the body of the function is going to consist of a couple of things. One of the things is that we need to know what is the current page count. And so the way we do that, so we're going to have to create a couple of variables. We're going to have to create some variables to store the old page count because they're changing it, right? They're dropping down, but we need to capture that old one. What is the old page count? So we're going to set up a couple of variables. One of the variables is going to be an old page count. Another variable will be the new page count, which is what they're selecting. And then we're going to have to also capture the maximum page number that is allowable based on the page count. So let's go ahead and set up the first variable is going to be var old page count. And that's going to be equal to math.ceil. And this one's going to be the number of records divided by the page count itself. So it'll be, what is it? I think it's contact result. Dot rec count. Yep. Divided by contact result dot page size. And then we need the new page count. So we're going to have to do the same thing. We say var new page count, and that's going to be equal to the same math ceiling and the contact result rec count. But this time what we want to do is we want to capture, instead of the contact result page size, we want to capture e.target.value. Cool. So this gives us the old page count and the new page count. And then we also going to need another variable called max page number. So this gives us the three numbers that we need in order to perform our calculation, right? And so now what we need on our next line is we're going to need an if statement that's going to do a couple of comparisons. So the comparison that the if is going to do is going to be if the old page count is greater than the new page count. And so it'll be double ampersand. The contact result dot page no is greater than the new page count. Here's where we're going to set the max page number equals to the new page count. And then finish that off with semicolon. And then outside the curly brace on line 27, go ahead and give me a blank line. We're going to set contact result. Do you need a new keyboard? Your shift isn't that working?
Weird.
You have your caps lock on?
Oh, duh. I was trying both shift keys. I was like,
Oh man, that's funny. So it's going, no, it's open parenthesis actually. And so in here, we're going to go ahead and start a new line. And we're going to say contact result. So we want our old contact results, comma, and then new line. And we want to set the page size colon e dot target dot value comma, and then press enter. And what is it? Page no? Is it page no? Colon max page no. So let's talk about what we did here. Can we hide your files just to get some real estate? So we're going to handle the select change, which means that we're going to call this function instead of calling the inline function. And the reason I wanted to do it, I mean, you can see where we needed a little bit more logic, right? Mm-hmm. So we're grabbing the old page count, which is basically the ceiling of the rec count divided by the page size, right? So if we have 102 records and we're dividing by 10, we're going to end up with 11 pages. So that's the old page count. The new page count is the rec count with the new value from the select. And then the maximum page count, we'll go ahead and set it as a default. We'll select, well, right now, this is the page where we're currently on. And if the new page count doesn't exceed, you know, the number of records that we can display, you know, and divide it into the rec count, then we'll just go ahead and leave it. You know, they can stay on that page. Otherwise, we need to adjust that page number, right? So if we switch from, in our scenario, we went with, we're displaying 5 records and we went all the way to page 13. And then we switched our rec count to 10. There is no page 13. Maximum is 11. So what we do is we say, well, that 13 now changes to the last page, you know, so that we can make that adjustment. And then we call set contact result and we set our values so that we can call the use effect function, and it grabs our new results. So excuse me. So instead of calling that inline function, let's call this handle select change in the onChange event of the select. Let's save that and see how it works. All right. So let's go ahead and go to the first. Oh, actually, let's go ahead and refresh. Do a clear cache and refresh. Our empty cache. Okay. And let's go to page 13. And let's go ahead and switch our row count to 10. Look at that. The math never lies. And if we go to the first page, it disables the first and previous. If we go to the last page, it disables the last and the next. And if we go to the previous page, now we're on page 10. Let's go ahead and switch the row count to 5. It left us on page 10 and it's the right calculation.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and switch it to 15 and let's see what it does. It says, well, we only have 7 pages, so we need to adjust that page. Nice. But let's switch it to 5 again. And it's left us on page 7, which is the right calculation. 7 times 5 is 35.
Nice.
Cool. I think this is kind of cool, huh?
Yeah.
We did good. You know what? I think this is a good place to stop, Jonathan.
Yeah.
We're winning.
This is a good place before we start going too far again.
Before we start breaking things. What's next, Jonathan? What are we looking forward to in our next episode? What is it that we need to get done?
What do we need to get done?
Well, how do we edit?
Oh, yeah.
We can add, but we can't edit.
We don't have those buttons on the side.
Yeah, we need to get that edit and delete, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have something similar in our significant application. Mm-hmm. So we should be able to take the code from there and put it right in here. or something like that. Probably not as easy, but something similar to that, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that's a good segment for our next episode. I think we'll wrap that up. We'll wrap up the season with finishing up the whole edit and delete and create and all that good stuff.
Cool.
It's cool. Sounds good. All right. Well, until next time.
Peace out.